From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Malignant narcissism.
If you got a tip for Melissa, a rumor you heard around the water cooler, a face in the crowd that rings a bell, why there's a king of burgers but only a captain of crunch, anything, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. Or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host. She likes solving cold cases even more than watching makeup videos on YouTube, but just barely, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. Just barely. Just barely better.
Just barely.
Been working on cold cases is just below that is my love of YouTube makeup videos, which poor producer Mark has been put through too many of them lately.
There is a big giant table that Melissa has in our master suite. It's got the big giant light bulbs around it, like in a makeup room behind, backstage.
It's an impressions vanity mirror. If you're gonna, call me out in public, fine.
For all you ladies out there, all you people in the theater, it's just, but it's amazing. And there's all these little drawers filled with little bottles of nail polish.
My nail polish is in the refrigerator in the guest room.
That's right. That's right. The guest room refrigerator doesn't have food in it. It's got little bottles of makeup.
It's nail polish in the refrigerator. You don't put makeup in the refrigerator.
Right, got it backwards.
Drawers.
But you know what?
No, I don't.
It is impressive.
Thank you.
When you see all the little drawers full of whatever that is.
Eyeshadow palettes and contouring.
Contouring?
Cream sticks. Yeah, why don't you shut up?
I didn't know that you needed to
It takes several hours for natural beauty.
I see. Okay, you're pretty naturally beautiful,
no, not even close. I got a lot of spackle.
Can I just say something to the ladies out there? You're all really beautiful, okay? You're beautiful. You don't need all that makeup. You don't.
Oh, my God, you're so full of shit.
Well, I'm just telling you.
I need all of it and more.
Every woman I've ever known is obsessed with makeup.
No.
And it's like, God, you're fine.
Oh, you're so insane. Men are so crazy. Whatever. Anyway, so yeah, I'm a firm believer. It was my mom, actually, who put in my head at a young age that most people aren't paying attention to you. They're paying attention to themselves. Most people are narcissists, not malignant narcissists, but not most people are narcissists. Most people are focused on themselves. So when I would be worried, like, oh my God, this looks terrible or whatever, my mom was like, most people aren't going to even see it or care. And I'm like, oh, she's right. It doesn't mean I should go like walking around the street with like, rat shit smeared on my face like an urchin, but you
could just go around with no makeup.
Fuck off. So anyway, you just shut the fuck up. You like it better when I have my face on. I don't care what you say.
You're beautiful either way.
So anyway, I got an ass full of people paying attention lately, and I didn't like it because I like it much better when I go unnoticed. So we had a leak in our master bathroom, and we had a series of weeks and weeks of, different people coming in to do different shit. And the plumber was one of those people. You don't expect it much from a guy, and from a younger guy who's like a hip guy. And I was shocked. So I have a couple of items that producer Mark and I were lucky enough to be given a tour of the LA County Sheriff's Department Homicide Bureau a year ago, February of 2020.
I can't believe it's already been a year.
Been a year before everything hit the shitter. And I picked up a couple of items from the gift shop.
It should be pointed out, it was in the gift shop.
In the gift shop.
And Melissa paid for them.
I paid for them.
They were for sale.
Yeah, and they're not expensive. They were wonderful items. I got a hoodie and a baseball hat and a computer bag.
That's right, a computer bag.
Yeah.
And they all have the logo.
Their logo.
They have the logo of the Sheriff's Department Homicide Department.
Which I forget, right? And so I left my ball cap, which I wear sometimes when I walk Siren Marie Morgan Humphreys, the worst dog on earth, just to keep my hair from blowing away in Santa Clarita, and I come down the steps, and the guy who's sort of managing all of the vendors for the fix of the shower is talking to the plumber, and he goes, "Oh, no. She hosts the podcast." So the plumber's like, "Hey, I saw your hat. You work for Homicide?" I'm like, "No, I don't work for Homicide, but thank you." So he goes upstairs and then to look at the master bathroom, and then he sees my mirror with the light bulbs around it and everything. He goes, "Hey, are you in Hollywood?" "No, sir. I like makeup a lot and put it all over my face. Can you please stop looking at my shit?"
Yeah, fix the shower
Just
head.
put the goddamn shower head in. I don't need your opinion. So, cut to this weekend, I go to our local mall because there's an Apple store, and I have been having a lot of trouble with my iPhone 11 that I'm going to set on fire. And I typically assume it's my fault because I have weird circuitry and I blow out a lot of electronic items, and I hate this fucking iPhone. And I am standing in line, and the security guard comes up, and I forget I got the goddamn fucking hoodie on with the sheriff's department logo. And he's like, "Hey, you guys got it really tough out there right now." And I'm like, "You mean like old fat women? I don't know what you mean."
Stop.
And he's like, "Yeah, it's tough time to be doing what you're doing." And I'm like, oh no, I don't. And he wouldn't stop talking. And he's older. He tells me he's retired from the feds. I'm not exactly sure what feds. And, got the HR 132 and the blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, mm-hmm.
Hey, he just wanted to do a little shop talk.
He did.
He's retired,
I know. I go, "But if you're retired, why are you here?" And he's, "You know us. We can't sit down." I'm like, "Well, I can because I don't work for the Homicide Bureau." And you won't let me finish a sentence. You just keep talking over me. So I finally get called in, and then they sort of fix my phone. There's other issues. But and they said it was a software glitch. So I was delighted it wasn't me, because typically it's me, and I just hate this fucking phone. So I go next door to the next store, which is Sephora.
Which, it should be pointed out, sells makeup.
They do. That is what they do.
That's what ladies put on their face.
Some ladies, and I am one of those ladies. And it should also be pointed out, the producer Mark got me a $50 gift card for Christmas. So
yeah, because you got to feed the addict, or she might murder you.
You're an enabler. You're a codependent enabler who enables my addiction. And yes. Anyway, so I go next door to use my gift card, and I pick up a couple of things, and I get to the register. And they're like, "Oh, you're a first responder." And I'm like, "What? I barely respond to my name. I don't know what the fuck are you talking about." "No, I'm not." And they're like, they point to the hoodie, and I'm like, "Oh, no. I bought that. That's not it." "Oh, well, what do you do?" Nothing. I host a podcast. I don't do anything." "Oh, well, you're a first responder." And I'm like, I'm not. And the other woman who's like training this girl, she's like, "She just wants to give you a 10% discount." And I'm like, right.
Take it.
I'm not a first responder. No.
She's looking for an excuse to give you. She was. She's probably looking for excuses to give everybody a discount that day.
Maybe because it was pretty dead, and it was a Saturday, and I didn't wait in line there. I waited in line at the Apple store, but not at Sephora, because it was nobody's allowed out anymore because of the pandemic. So I'm like, no. So I think we have ourselves an agreement. And I take my purchases, which, by the way, cost twice as much as the gift card. And then I go out to the car, and I look at the receipt, and it says 10% off. And I'm like, God damn it. I mean, I'm not going back in. I'm not going to give them back basically what amounts to the California amount of tax.
Yeah, it was
like 10%.
It was sales tax.
It was sales tax, right? But I felt really shitty that I was milking the system.
You should not feel shitty.
Even though I tried so hard. I'm like, no, I don't.
That's because you're an honest person.
I am.
But I do have one question.
Oh, shit. Here we go.
What was that you said about being twice as much as the
It
gift
actually
card?
wasn't. That was an exaggeration.
Okay.
I'd forgotten. So here's what happened. It was twice as much as the one. But what had happened is that I had put away a bag in the closet and found some Christmas cards from 2019. And there was another Sephora gift card that you'd given me. So I had two.
I see.
I had two $50 gift cards.
You have such a wealth of Sephora gift cards that
Not anymore.
You just forget about them.
Not anymore. No, I put shit away and then forget. And then I'm like, oh, look, it's magical. It's like finding, $20 in your pocket of your jacket you don't wear.
That is kind of cool.
It was. It wasn't twice as much. I actually had to pay like $3. It was $103. But anyway, and then I got that 10% off, which I didn't deserve because I'm not a first responder. So now I can't wear any of my my LA County Sheriff's Department homicide shit out of the house.
You got to wear it. You got to keep wearing it. God only knows what other discounts you're going to get.
Oh my God, no. I can't. I won't. I can't. You're a terrible person. I'm not. I refuse to discuss this with you anymore. You're a terrible person. So we have a jam-packed episode. We have too many things to talk about, and I'm going to try and get them all in. I want to say thank you to, I think her name is Cosme, maybe Cosme. I believe she was on Spotify. I don't usually get any sort of notifications from other streaming services other than Apple Podcasts. But she said she laughed at the name of the podcast and then she listened and became hooked. So thank you. And then we have another lovely review from Melinda F. On Apple Podcasts. She wrote a lovely review, and I will tell you, Melinda, I at first fucked up and looked at your name and thought it said Melind AF. So you're like Melind as fuck, but it's Melinda F. So that's my bad. That's my bad.
Well, she is Melind as fuck.
She is Melind as fuck. That's right. She is. God damn it. She is. So when I said malignant narcissism, I really, at the beginning, I really wanted to do a very short review. I think producer Mark and I both really enjoyed the Dateline multi-part series, The Widower. And we had seen the original story when it was aired as the case of the crappy Thomas Randolph killing one of his wives, Sharon Randolph, and the man who he was going to pay to kill his wife, Mike Miller. So we watched all 3 parts. I believe the first part's an hour and the second 2 are 2 hours. So it's like a 5-hour.
Right.
Yeah. And it's from the producers of Dateline. And they apparently spent about 10 years just kind of following the case, all of this footage, and they put it together.
The footage is amazing.
I
don't know where they got it. I mean,
unprecedented.
Yeah, somebody gave them a lot of access on this. I mean, multiple people, I guess, because
the family, the sheriff's department,
and
Clark County,
and Randolph himself. I mean,
that's the malignant narcissism.
Yeah,
part.
Absolutely.
If you want to see a narcissist personified, Thomas Randolph is that guy. I mean, he just walks in with the big dick energy, and I have no idea if he has a penis at all because he looks like a chick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think producer Mark, who, occasionally gets interested in these sort of interesting, in my mind, homicide documentary television shows, you became really interested in this one. You were captivated.
I did because Thomas Randolph, I mean, you really need to watch this to get it. I've never encountered anything. I mean, I'm sure there are lots of people like him, but they are never a narcissist to the extent that he is here by letting everybody see everything he did. He let people into, he let cameras and microphones into what should have been confidential conferences with his defense counsel,
You're right.
who he kept telling them they weren't doing their job right. And these guys are sitting there going, Tom, you shouldn't say that. Tom, don't say that. And he just goes right ahead and does it. And he fucking gets away with it. It's the thing that just drives you out of your mind.
That's the thing that is so awful. He's had 6 wives. 4 of them are dead. 3 of them under circumstances. I mean, his last name should be Peterson. He should be Drew Michael Scott and Thomas Randolph Peterson. It's the saga of the dude who kills a bunch of people for insurance money.
And it's methodical and it's thought out and he gets away with it.
And the one that bothered me the most was suing the agency in Utah and getting, it's a sealed judgment, but he got money for wrongful conviction because he was acquitted, which is just awful.
Or the fact that he sued the okay. I just got to tell this. I won't give away anything else in this story, but the one story of his second or third wife who dies in the hospital after having surgery. This woman's daughter. Right. This woman's daughter is visiting her as she's recuperating. Is visiting her mom in the hospital, and her mom is fine. They're having a great conversation. Everything's groovy. In walks Randolph and says, "Hey, honey, can I spend a few minutes alone with your mom?" "Oh, sure." So the daughter walks out of the room, shuts the door. 15 minutes later, he walks out and says, "Oh, your mom's dead."
Right, and he sued the hospital.
And then he sued the hospital and got a huge settlement from the hospital for wrongful death.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Right. He's got some issues. So the case that we'll be discussing, which I promise we will get to it in mere moments, I'm not comparing the two defendants. I am saying I don't like the lawsuit issue. But so, yeah, if you want to know what a narcissist looks like in a full body, look at Thomas Randolph. The Widower is an interesting, I guess you would call it a docuseries.
Yeah, it's a documentary series, and I'm sure you can get it on the if you have cable or satellite, you can get it on demand. I'm sure. Right.
It was aired on NBC, I think, like over 3 nights, like Thursday
NBC,
night,
right.
Friday night, Sunday night, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure you can get it on NBC on demand.
Yeah, on demand, something like that. So sometimes we get to give really great updates, and this is one that I've been waiting. I'd mentioned it a few episodes ago because I knew it was coming. I just didn't know when. But episode 122 that we had covered the Valentine Sally case, and it was one of the ones that is so heartbreaking and so long ago. Sometimes you feel like the only thing left is genetic genealogy, and I don't want to put all of the burden on them, but God damn it, if that Barbara Ray Venter didn't fucking do it again. She is Wonder Woman, and she, of course, is so humble. She's like, it's really Irene Rossman, and it's Team BRV is what David Middleman of Othram calls it. So it's Barbara Ray Venter's team worked really hard and identified Valentine Sally as Carolyn Eaton from St. Louis. So how 17-year-old Carolyn Eaton ended up dead on the side of the road in Arizona at the beginning of February and not found until Valentine's Day of 1982. She had run away from home sometime around Christmas of 1981. And they ended up doing a familial DNA test with siblings and identified her. Now, Barbara had sort of mentioned this in a small group setting a month ago or more and was upset that it had been put out on sites that she didn't think were reputable. And she's right. I don't know who put it out there. All I did was say, we know who she is. And I sure didn't know her name then, but I knew Barbara knew who she was. And I believe she's trying to protect the integrity of the case because it is still an open homicide investigation. So we've given Carolyn her name back, and now we need to find out who did this to her. So if you have any time or interest and you want to listen to episode 122 of the Valentine Sally case, it is a wonderful thing to be able to say we know who she is, and it's still an awful thing to say we don't know who did this to her. But it's, hopefully, if they were able to identify her, hopefully there'll be something that the fuckface did and left behind that will be able to identify him. So we can keep our fingers crossed. And one last announcement, I promise the last one. I was really blessed to be a guest on the Don't Assume podcast, and it is a great podcast. I've mentioned it before. It's such a brilliant conceit. We all make assumptions in our daily life about people, about items, about ourselves, and sometimes, they're true and sometimes they're not. And I love that Dave Kimball has such an open mind and is so fascinated by life. He's just curious about life, and he hosts this wonderful podcast. And he had wanted to talk to me about something completely different, about yoga, and we ended up talking about true crime. So I am the guest, and we will release the episode later this week as a Murdertizer. So you'll get an extra episode this week, and it's just my interview with Dave Kimball, and I think you'll really enjoy it. He's such a fascinating creature, and it was a real joy to get to be on that podcast. So this episode was sent to me by Tipster Mickey, and I believe he sent it to me on Twitter. And I was like, I believe Mickey is from another country. I believe he's from the UK. I could be wrong. Could be Australia. But I was like, well, thank you. This is an interesting one. Why are you sending it to me? And he said, because you're America's favorite true crime podcast. And I was like, oh, honey, no, that's just what I say. It's not the truth. I mean, it's not the truth. I'm not lying. I don't say America's most popular true crime podcast. I say America's favorite.
Yes, it is America's favorite.
It is America's favorite. America is a very small island of two people, me and producer Mark.
Well, it's, you know what? We could also say we're number one. Because if you just say you're number one,
you can just say that?
You can just say it.
I'm number two. I'm number two.
Okay.
I think we're like number 76 in Uganda or something. I don't know. But yeah. Anyway, it was just so funny that Tipster Mickey is like, well, I wanted you to know about this case because I don't think it's getting a lot of people talking about it outside the local area. And I was like, oh, okay. And I think he's sort of right, but not exactly, because it has a lot of elements. And while I'm sure it's a very talked about case in upstate New York, I think it has a whole lot of ramifications, some of which we talked about in our little mini review of The Widower, which you will find out. And I had told producer Mark he may have some things to comment on this case because he knows about the law so much more than I do. And I hate to say it's Anthony DiPippo's case because he is sort of, unfortunately, the star of this, but it's really the case of Josette Wright and Robin Murphy, these two young women who went missing in upstate New York. There's several different cities mentioned, Stormville, Carmel. It's all in Putnam County in upstate New York. Loosely what happened is 12-year-old Josette Wright, who was in the 6th grade, went missing October 3rd of 1994. And it takes a year and a month for her remains to be found in November of 1995 by hunters. And then April 9th of 1995, 17-year-old Robin Murphy disappeared from a shopping center in Carmel, New York. And these two cases, they believe, are related. Robin Murphy has still not been found. They're absolutely assuming that 26 years later, she is deceased, and I think they're probably right, but she has still not been found. And again, it took 13 months before Josette Wright was found. And two men were arrested, two young men were arrested in the case of Josette Wright. Now, Anthony DiPippo and Andrew Krivak were friends. They were young. They were, let's call them, on the wrong path. They were selling drugs. They were enjoying life. They were bouncing around from trailers to apartments to crashing on friends' couches. They had families who would fund their lifestyles as well as them selling drugs. And they were both arrested for the murder of Josette Wright, based a lot on testimony from an ex-girlfriend who actually, I believe, had dated both men. Now, Anthony DiPippo was 19. Andrew Krivak was, I believe, younger. I believe he was 17. And poor sweet Josette Wright was 12, a 12-year-old 6th grader. Now, the girl who had dated both of these men said that she had witnessed them raping and murdering Josette in the back of Andrew's van. Now, Denise Rose, I don't, there's not a lot about her, but she was obviously an extremely powerful witness. I don't know if she was young and wanted to get back at Anthony DiPippo. He said that they had dated on and off. Now, as far as Andrew Krivak, he actually confessed. He's young and confessed after what he says was a terrible interrogation, so much coercion, threatening, physical violence. It was, just a really terrible scene, but he confessed. So both men were tried separately. Both men were found guilty. Andrew Krivak does not get another trial because he has confessed, even though they're trying very hard to get him a retrial because they feel he was completely coerced, that confession was just so he could get out from underneath the pressure of what was happening to him. And Anthony DiPippo is like, I'm not letting this sit. He has a second trial granted, but he is convicted a second time. But his attorney had represented the really awful cog in this wheel, Howard Gombert. Now, Howard Gombert had been arrested for sexually assaulting an 8-year-old girl in Connecticut 5 years after Robin Murphy disappeared. And while he's in custody and they are interviewing him, they enact a search warrant on many places he has lived. And one of the places is a girlfriend and one of the places he had stayed. And there is a suitcase found, which is basically terribly, I just have to say it, it's his trophy case. And a pair of underwear is found. A lot of women's underwear is found. But one pair comes back to belonging to Robin Murphy. And we have no idea where her body is to this day. So Howard Gombert says, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how those, underwear got there. I mean, they were from ex-girlfriends. I don't, And the police are like, yeah, well, we can tell you that one pair comes back to Robin Murphy. And he's like, I might have met her and had sex with her, but I didn't kill her. I mean, it's what's so heartbreaking is that Robin Murphy was a friend of Howard Gombert's girlfriend. And Howard apparently was working at a coin-operated laundry. And he says, Robin stopped by that night at work, April 9th of 1995, and she wanted to talk to me about trouble she had with her boyfriend. She was going to go meet him at Burger King, and that's all I know. And she was going to meet her boyfriend at Burger King, and she never showed up. And her mother's car was found in the parking lot of Burger King, and Robin's wallet and keys were found a few days later behind the shopping center where the coin-operated laundry is. So after Gombert is questioned in the disappearance of Robin Murphy, because he sure was, he was questioned the following day after Robin has disappeared. 5 days later, he tries to commit suicide by overdosing on sleeping pills outside of his dad's house. And he was admitted to the hospital. His stomach was pumped and he was fine. He said, I don't know why I tried to do that. And I sure didn't do it because Robin Murphy is missing. He said, the last time I saw her, she was fine. She was happy. She was fine. So Howard Gombert has had a really crappy, lengthy arrest record. He was arrested for 2 first-degree rape charges that were unfortunately later dismissed. One in 1991 involved a 13-year-old girl who recanted her claim while she was on the stand. So before he was convicted of the sexual abuse of this 8-year-old girl, he was arrested on February 29th of 2000 after his girlfriend accused him of sexually assaulting her in their New Milford, Connecticut home. So while they're questioning him, they find this suitcase at his girlfriend's home. And they're like, hey, guess what? Look what we found. Well, I don't know how that got there. Oh, yeah, you do. Well, I may have had some underwear from some ex-girlfriends. Right. And this pair conclusively comes back to Robin Murphy, who's still missing. And he's like, So while he is being questioned by then Sergeant Brian Karst, Sergeant Karst said, Gombert seems like he's on the verge of tears. When we confront him about certain facts about Robin's case, he doesn't rebut anything. Sergeant Karst said that Gombert's body language and behavior indicated that he was being very deceptive. So he is arrested and convicted of this sexual assault of this 8-year-old girl. I believe he was given 30 years. So he is in jail, and he sends a letter to Sergeant Karst, who is now, I believe he's the chief, or lieutenant. He has become the lieutenant. It's the town of Carmel in New York. And here is the lieutenant's response. Dear Howard, I received your letter dated 3/23/03. Now, just to let you know, the lieutenant's letter back to him is dated 3/27/03. So it's 4 days later. I must say I was taken aback by the hostility you exhibited in it. I apologize for not getting back to you directly, but I have many responsibilities in my position, and I'm not always able to respond right away. I'm still very interested in having you take a polygraph examination and have been researching your requests. I talked to a polygraphist regarding the questions you submitted, and he advised me that it's possible to include some of your questions in the examination, but it seems that the totality of the questions would require more than one test because it's of more than one subject matter. I'm sure this detail can be overcome by some type of mutual agreement. I will attempt to make the arrangements and then advise you of them as soon as possible. So here's where the letter becomes a tool that Lieutenant Karst is using in an attempt to appeal to a narcissist and to get him to say, I'm the one that killed Josette Wright, and I'm the one that killed Robin Murphy. Lieutenant Karst says, I must tell you that assaulting my character will not change the facts in this case. You were in possession of a pair of underpants that belonged to Robin Murphy, and they had her DNA on them. I did not manufacture this truth, and I certainly did not manufacture all of the other evidence against you in this case. As to the items that were legally taken, they're part of an ongoing investigation and will not be returned until there's a disposition in this case. You're an intelligent person, and I believe that you can understand this. I appreciate the fact that you're trying to help me with this case, Howard, and at the same time clear your name. And I really believe that you considered Robin Murphy to be a friend. But I also feel strongly that something went terribly wrong that day. There's still some good that can come out of this tragedy, Howard, and you can be the instrument that can make it happen. I ask you to look deep within yourself and find the fortitude to help ease the Murphy family of their pain. I know you can do this because I see that there is good in you and that you may have been a victim of circumstance. I don't think you're a bad guy. I think you have had some tough breaks in your life that were completely out of your control. I think that certain people who you trusted throughout your life may have betrayed and or mistreated you. And if this is true, I genuinely feel bad for you and hope you can heal these wounds someday. The only way to heal and be truly free from all of this is to do what you can to atone for the people that you have wronged in your life. Robin Murphy is one of those people. Her journey will not be complete until she's laid to rest and a place where her family can visit her and pray for her soul. I ask you to help me find her and give this final gift to her family. I'm not your enemy, Howard. I'm just a guy trying to do his job to the best of his abilities. I even believe that under different circumstances, you and I could have been friends. We're not that very different, but I think that fate has chosen our paths, and it is fate that brings us together to unlock the mystery of Robin's disappearance. You hold the key to this mystery, Howard, and you can unlock this door for yourself and the Murphy family. I urge you to do this and set yourself free of the torment you must be feeling. Allow Robin to find her stairway to heaven. I encourage you to write me, and I promise you I will be more diligent in answering your next letter. The fact is, Howard, that I need your help finding Robin, and I hope you can find it in your heart to assist me. Yours truly, Brian Karst. Now
that's designed to, that really is designed to, to poke a narcissist, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to know what was in Howard's letter to him exactly.
Apparently he is a narcissist, like Thomas Randolph is a narcissist, saying, give me a polygraph test. And I do think it's fascinating that the lieutenant checked with a polygraphist and said, yeah, we can ask these specific questions, but we're talking about two different things. And I don't know if he's talking about Robin Murphy's case and Josette Wright's, but
right.
It's so heartbreaking that Anthony DiPippo was represented by an attorney who was at one time Howard Gombert's attorney and had not evidence, but had been given information that Howard was the real killer of Josette Wright, and went ahead and represented Anthony DiPippo.
Yeah, that's not kosher.
Not in the least. So a third trial is granted to Anthony DiPippo after the first two trials end in him being found guilty. And the third trial, he is found not guilty. And it is probably most shocking to Anthony DiPippo. He felt that he said, I don't see any way out of this. He hung his head and thought, and I will tell you, he is a very polarizing character in my mind. I shouldn't say this because I know he's doing a lot of work to try and help those wrongfully convicted. He actually was a guest on the podcast Wrongful Conviction, I believe it's called. The host is Jason Flom. And Jason, I think, is a big fan of Anthony DiPippo. There were a lot of softballs, and I get it. It's a podcast about people who they believe have been wrongfully convicted. So he wants to believe completely. I'm not saying Anthony DiPippo had anything to do with Josette Wright's murder at all, and definitely not of Robin Murphy. I think it's probably Howard Gombert all the way. However, Anthony DiPippo sues and gets a $12 million settlement.
Ooh.
A $12 million
oh my
settlement.
Well, wow. Okay.
A $12 million settlement. And by the way, he's found not guilty. Andrew Krivak, still in prison. They were both convicted in separate trials.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of the same crime.
Yep.
I mean,
Right. Now, Anthony DiPippo says, my goal is to get Andrew Krivak out, and I'm sure he means that, and I'm sure he will work on that. And he's
got $12 million. You think he could hire a good attorney?
Well, here's something he said that I found almost uncomfortable. He is a larger than life character. Now, he spent, 19 years. He spent his formative years, from 20 to 39 or 40 in prison for something that he was found not guilty of at this point. And he said, I was lucky. I had a family with money. I had great attorneys, and I was sort of feeling my ass slam shut, because if you come from a family with money and you can afford great attorneys who get you out, do you then need to sue for $12 million? Or do you sue for $1? And if you win, you say, I won because they did this to me. Or do you sue for $100,000 and then donate that money to an agency that, looks at DNA or helps?
To the Innocence Project or something. Yeah.
Exactamundo. That's sort of where I am. So Anthony DiPippo is a larger than life character. And I mean that. He's like 6'5", and he's a big guy. And he talks about how he got through prison. They transfer you to different prisons. Some prisons are better than others, obviously. Some are terrible. I feel like you get an idea of who he is when he is found not guilty and he did not expect to go home that day, and he gets to go home and they say, where do you want to go? And he says, Red Lobster. And he got the, the fisherman's feast or whatever. He got the biggest thing. He said he'd gained 35 pounds in the first 6 months out of prison.
Oh my.
Right. So an interesting thing about this lawsuit, here's where I feel like producer Mark might have some comments or ideas. So the Putnam County District Attorney, Robert Tendy, was furious, I think, in a good way, and criticized the legislature, the county executive, and the county attorney that helped foster this $12 million lawsuit. They didn't consult him before agreeing to settle the lawsuit. And he, was so angry. He said it has no factual or legal basis, and it should have ultimately failed. So, he says after 3 trials, there's never been a single finding by any court of civil rights abuse or anything like that. Now, that's stretching a little bit, because Anthony DiPippo said, he was coerced. Poor Andrew Krivak confessed and then said, I just said that he was a kid. He said, I said that so they would leave me alone. It's the DA is pretty furious. And he says, I just think this is completely ridiculous. Now, County Executive Mary Ellen Odell said, and this is just August of 2020, last year, she said that the members of the legislature who voted to approve the settlement were deeply disappointed in DA Tendy's reaction. Odell said Tendy was taking a business decision as a personal affront to him and feels as though it's a comment on his shortcomings and inability to convict Anthony DiPippo. This couldn't be further from the truth. She also accused the DA of not being even remotely familiar with the fact of DiPippo's federal lawsuit. He could not even begin to describe the conflicting and troublesome evidence that had been discovered thus far in a case which had been litigated for over 2 years by the county's Insurance Defense Council and its Insurance Coverage Council. Mr. Tendy should concern himself with the business of the DA's office and leave the federal litigation to those with greater expertise and knowledge of evidentiary standards. The fact that Mr. Tendy believes that with no knowledge of the facts of the case, he knows better than 4 attorneys and a mediator how the litigation should have been handled is both arrogant and egotistical. Mr. Tendy's job is to put criminals behind bars. Where Mr. Tendy failed to do his job effectively, he cannot blame myself or the legislature for doing ours.
Well, I think he had a right to be upset. It is a business decision that they made, but I think I agree with the DA.
Well, now here's the last part. Ms. Odell called the settlement one of the most difficult decisions I've had to make as a county executive, particularly given the circumstances of the crime and in light of the economic collapse we're facing due to COVID-19. I am, however, supporting this settlement to protect the taxpayers by capping the amount we would be required to pay at $200,000. According to Odell, if the case went to trial, DiPippo could have been awarded up to $30 million by a federal jury in White Plains. The case would have cost the county millions more in legal fees And she said the settlement would protect county taxpayers.
Okay.
So the insurance companies are not in the business of handing out money, yet they're recommending this settlement.
This is the kind of stuff I deal with at work all the time.
I know.
And these kind of calculations are made, but $14 million?
12.
Okay, $12 million? It's still...
It's like, you know, what?
Come on.
$600,000 a year. Yeah, because it was like 19 years he was in prison. So yeah, $12 million for 19 years. I am not saying that when someone's wrongfully convicted, they shouldn't get remuneration of some sort. I'm not saying that. I just don't have the answer. I don't know what is fair for either side. I don't know how the world works. It's all numbers on paper to me, as far as, you know, the county is paying $200,000 and the insurance company is paying $11,800,000. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, it's all just large numbers on paper to me. So Anthony DiPippo does appear to be putting maybe not his money where his mouth is, but his time and energy in trying to get those wrongful. He seems very, very focused on getting those wrongfully convicted, you know, a fair trial in his mind, or even, you know, exonerated. And I understand that. I feel like he should put more time trying to find out who murdered Josette Wright. If he feels it's Howard Gombert, and we're, you know, pretty sure it's Howard Gombert who killed Robin Murphy, we just have to find her and maybe he'll come clean. You know, he's in his mid-50s now. He's not too old. He, you know, looks pretty healthy from his, mugshots. So
this is Gombert you're talking about.
Yes, Howard Gombert, yeah. I think if Anthony DiPippo really wants to do a good thing, he can, you know, find someone, use his influence, his power, his money to find evidence against Howard Gombert. So this Denise Rose, this girlfriend who he had dated off and on, and who apparently Andrew Krivak also dated, I don't know why she became the center point of this trial, and she was the only one that anyone believed enough to convict two men. You know, I don't understand that. I mean, she said, I saw them rape Josette Wright and murder her in Andrew Krivak's van. I don't know if there's any evidence in his van. I know Andrew Krivak's family are, you know, trying to get an appeal in his case. And this is something that just breaks your heart. Josette Wright's grandmother, Geraldine Allen, said, you know, I'm not taking any joy in their conviction. And she's talking about the defendants. They brought tragedies to 3 families. They really did. And even the chief assistant district attorney who prosecuted both cases, and they were separate trials, said, there's no winners. There's only justice. Now, I don't know if justice has been done. There's definitely no winners other than, you know, a $12 million lawsuit. Do you consider that something in the win column if you've had to spend 19 years in prison? I don't know. I don't think there are any winners in this case. I think that it's a terrible thing that it took Howard Gombert being arrested for something else for them to find Robin Murphy's underwear in his trophy suitcase. I think that's a terrible, terrible thing. So there's a lot of really good information about this case all over. There's the Herald Statesman in Yonkers. There's the Journal News in White Plains. There's, you know, a lot of information about this case. One of the articles from 2012 is a little upsetting in that a jailhouse snitch said that Anthony DiPippo admitted that he had sex with Josette Wright, but didn't kill her. Anthony DiPippo had a previous arrest for having sex with an underage girl, but he was also underage. I believe he was 17 and she was 13. So he is now 19 at the time of his arrest on the Josette Wright case. And this jailhouse snitch, Scott Chestnut, I don't understand how things like this are allowed in. He had more than 60 drug-related convictions, and he was in the Putnam County Jail in 1996, and Anthony DiPippo was in the next cell. And he said they were returning Anthony DiPippo to his cell on July 1st, and he blurted out that he had had sex with Josette.
Just blurted it out.
Just blurted it out, you know.
Yeah.
And Scott Chestnut said, yeah, you know, he was upset and talking loud and saying that he and his best friend had sex with her and that his best friend ratted on him. And then he was charged in her murder. Well, his best friend, Andrew Krivak, was also charged. You know, he said he didn't murder anyone. He had sex with her and that he was high on angel dust. So,
okay.
Right. Now, here's the thing. Scott Chestnut is from Dutchess County, but he's homeless. So he's being housed at a hotel, and his meals are provided by the Putnam jail. And he's in, I guess, in exchange for his testimony. In cross-examination, Chestnut talked about his criminal record, mostly drug addiction, and he also admitted that he had a traumatic brain injury that affects his memory. He said on the stand, "My memory comes and goes sometimes."
Okay.
Anthony DiPippo's defense attorney, Robert Isaacs, said, you know, there's inconsistencies in your testimony, Mr. Chestnut. The testimony you gave in 1997 and the testimony today at a retrial in 2012. You know, and he's like, yep, well, again, sometimes my memory comes and goes.
That's great, reliable testimony.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it seems fascinating that he was convicted and maybe there was some sort of terrible right from the top, you know, coercion and malfeasance on the part of those in law enforcement. It seems like the people that testified against him, I still can't find anything about Denise Rose, the ex-girlfriend, why her testimony was considered to lock everything in. But I do think the fact that his attorney also represented Howard Gombert, who had been, you know, one of the early suspects in Josette Wright's disappearance and then murder, I think that absolutely warranted another trial. I'm still just stuck on the $12 million.
This makes my head spin.
It is a lot. And I understand why Tipster Mickey wanted the case covered, because he felt it wasn't getting enough attention in places other than upstate New York.
Yeah, people need to look into this.
I think you're right. And I think if anyone knows anything about the abduction and murder of Josette Wright, if anyone knows anything about where Robin Murphy might be, please call the Putnam County Sheriff's Office at 845-225-4300. And more cowbell.
If you'd like to support this podcast, go to patreon.com/just the Tip-Sters.